Welcome back. Last week, I ranked every single Survivor winner by how well I think they played the game. Today, I will be doing basically the same thing, but with Big Brother. So, Big Brother and Survivor are two completely different games, so they will have different criteria that I will use to rank their winners. So, basically, I just put them into tiers, rank how I think they played well in their tiers, and bam, boom. So this is only going to be one part, unlike Survivor, because this only has 20 winners that we will be going through. We will not be ranking Eddie McGee, as he did not actually play the real game Big Brother. So we don't really know how well he plays. Disclaimer: this video idea was from the Moraine review, and a lot of my thoughts, and a lot of my opinions of these winners' games are from the Moranian review. So I will leave a link in the description to the Moranian Reviews channel. He is a very good channel and dives really deep into these topics. So yeah. So here we have, we're ranking every single game from Will Kirby to Jackson Mickey. So basically, all 20 of these winners will be ranked today, from 20 being the worst to 1 being the best. So let's get going, shall we? Alright, so starting off with number 20, we have Jordan Lloyd. And I don't think this is a very, controversial pick, as everybody basically puts her in last place. So, Jordan Lloyd really did nothing except for follow Jeff Schroeder. I mean, she won a couple competitions, and probably her biggest move of the season was winning the final HOH and taking out Kevin. That's pretty much it. So she's not really that great of a winner. She didn't really do much throughout the game, mainly just having Jeff carry her to the end. And it's not like a Natalie White where she is self-aware of her game. She was probably self-aware that she was following Jeff, but she never really acted upon anything. At least Natalie White actually was able to control the Eric Cordona boot. So yeah, Jordan didn't really control anything, so here she is at number 20. Now at number 19, this is probably going to be a very controversial pick, but I personally hate this winner's game, and that is Rachel Riley. Okay, at the final 6, she won by a twist. So, yeah. I mean, if that thing wasn't there, she probably still wins the game, but I'm still going to flag her anyway. She was always on the bottom. She was pretty well set in the pre-jury of the game, but once the merge hit, once the jury came, her game just went completely to shreds. The only reason why she survives that final 9 vote is because of Julie Chen revealing that, oh, someone's returning into the game, and Lawan being an idiot. Other than that, she won a bunch of comps, and if she lost any of those comps, she does go home. So, yeah, here she is at number 19. Moving on to number 18, we have Evil Dick Donato. And pretty much everybody has these people as their bottom 3 winners: Jordan, Rachel, and Dick. I mean, it's pretty universally looked at as the 3 worst winners. But let's look over why Dick Donato is one of the worst 3 winners. 1, he pissed off multiple people during the game. He pissed off multiple people during the season. He made tons of enemies. And at the final 9, he was saved by America's player. In BB8, Eric Stein was controlling the game, but he was controlling it in a very flawed format due to America basically controlling everything he does. So, Eric has this majority alliance that he's controlling. And right now, Evil Dick and Danielle are on the block. Evil Dick wins POV and takes Danielle off the block, and now he's up there with Dustin. It would have been a 3-3 tie where Jessica breaks the tie and votes out Dick, so Dick is now eliminated. But due to America's player forcing Eric to save Dick, it is now a 4-2 vote where Dustin, Eric's ally, goes home, forcing Eric to form an alliance with Dick with Dick and Danielle to then and then at that point it's smooth sailing for Dick. So he was saved at the final 9. But I do give him a lot of credit for, like, at the end he was basically controlling the game. So he still had a little bit of dominance over Rachel and Jordan, but still not a lot. Now, moving on to number 17, we have Ian Terry. And like Rachel Riley, he goes home at the double eviction, except he wins POV, so he obviously can't. He's Dan's main target, and he doesn't know that he's Dan's main target. He still thinks that the Quack Pack is still a thing. So Ian thinks that he's still in an alliance with somebody who just nominated him and is working to take him out. Ian was clueless during this endgame, and he rarely knew what was going on, except I do give him credit for, I guess, controlling the Boogie vote. I guess that was sort of his move. I mean, not really, but I do give him credit for that. I mean, he's still a bottom tier winner in my opinion, but I put him over Rachel and Evil Dick just because I feel like that he was in the majority for a longer time than both of those. Alright, moving on to number 16. We have Josh Martinez. And, I mean, what can I say other than everybody thought he was stupid? Everybody thought of him as somebody who could not win the game, except he goes up against Paul and wins the game. I mean, his end game is almost perfect. I mean, he's able to convince, he's able to give the jury what they want to hear in his goodbye messages, to where he makes some people bitter against Paul. Like, he's able to make Alex and Jason bitter against Paul, which is a fantastic move. My main problem with him, though, is that rarely anybody liked him. So nobody liked him throughout the game. Everyone thought he was a nitwit, but he was basically the second in command to Paul, so he lands here at the bottom of the second in command tier. Moving on to number 15, we have Casey Clark. And she's basically in the same tier as Josh, just one spot above her, just because people actually liked Casey. I mean, I don't think she dominated the game at all. I think that was more of Tyler's work. And most of the votes that she got was Tyler saying to make bonds with these people like Bailey and Rockstar. But, I mean, she didn't play a good game at all here. I mean, she needed comp wins to win. If Angela won that POV, she goes home, and Tyler wins that season. And honestly, if finales and Big Brother now aren't so rushed, she loses the season, as Haley could have convinced Fessel to vote for Tyler, and she loses the season. Even Bailey was thinking about switching her vote to Tyler. So, yeah, she almost lost the game if the finales weren't so rushed. But, so here she is at number 15. Moving on to number 14, we have Lisa Donahue. And she played a pretty under-the-radar game. She's kind of like the Danny Boatwright of Big Brother. I mean, I love Lisa. She was able to use her social game to maneuver around the game until the final 3, like what Danny did, and basically integrate herself in the dominant 2 force. With Danny's case, it was Rafe and Stephanie. With her case, Danielle and Jason. She was able to become the 3rd, make Danielle and Jason make a fatal mistake in voting out Amy, like what Rafe and Stephanie did with Lydia, which then allowed Lisa to win the final HOH, like what Danny did, and win the season because of this. So, overall, she played a pretty under-the-radar game, but her social game was pretty much enough to get her the win. So, no one really disliked her, so that's why I put her here at number 14. Now, moving on to number 13, we have Adam Jasinski. And I feel like he's a very underrated winner, and people think that, I mean, he didn't really do anything. I disagree with that, but I didn't think he controlled everything. I think that was more of Ryan, but at the end game, he played it pretty much masterfully. He was able to make some people bitter against Ryan and be able to get all of Ryan's votes. His his jury questioning performance was pretty good. during the game, everybody liked him. I can't think of a single person who disliked him except for Sheila at the very beginning. But he was able to flip her feelings around for him. I do give him a flaw though, that the Final Four HOH was basically like kind of rigged. So Adam was a very Adam was a pretty good winner. Not many people liked him, but he didn't really think strategically at times. Like, not putting up James at the final 6 at the first shot. Like, why are you doing this? But thankfully, people are able to get him to put James up after the veto comp. But Adam is a very mixed... I'm very mixed on him. He has some good qualities, but he also has some bad qualities. I'm not talking about his later stuff that happens to him, but... He has some bad qualities, but also good qualities, so that's why he lands here at number 13. Moving on to number 12, we have Jackson Mickey. And Jackson played a very sloppy game. He was in the majority alliance and basically controlling that with like Jack for the first part of the pre-jury. But then once Bella goes, his game completely goes to shreds as everybody is now targeting him. But thankfully, Jessica Jessica says, "Nah, I want to get Jack out." So she's able to get Jack out, and then Mickey is able to just slide under the radar, win a bunch of comps, and then basically dominate the end game. So he played a very scrappy game, but he also played a pretty good. But he also played a pretty good game. So, with him being in the minority for a pretty good chunk of the game, but also him being in the majority at different parts in the game, and him dominating the season at one point, and we can't talk. Can we even ignore the Final 5 move about his lie about Tommy? I mean, that was pretty much the best move of the season that got him the win. So that's why I put him here at number 12. Now moving on to number 11, we have Steve Moses. And Steve, he was nominated the first 2 weeks, but he was able to win the veto comps. Wait, no, he was nominated the first week. He won the veto comp and was able to get him out of there. And I'm pretty sure he was nominated the second week, but won BOB, but it's fine after that. But he was able to be the second in command to basically Vanessa and basically just ride her coattails, win the final immunity, and win the final HOH, and then take Vanessa out. But he did need that final HOH to stay in the game. But other than that, he wouldn't go out at any other point. So I put him here at number 11 because he was never really in danger, but he was never really in control. So that's what gets him here at number 11. Moving on to number 10, we have June Song. And June Song played a floater-esque game where you flip between sides which one's in power. Well, technically, yeah, that's a floater, and she does this intentionally. So, June strategically maneuvered through the Three Stooges when they won HOH, so she would stay on their good side, and then move to the majority when they won HOH. She was able to keep this up until the end game, where she was able to form a 3-person alliance of her, Erica, and Allison. And Allison basically won all the comps, making her the biggest threat. And every single time, she was pretty much the lowest threat out of the 3. So she was able to keep her threat level low to where people like Erica, people like Allison would always be in front of her before they would target her, which is how she was able to get to the final 3 and throw the HOH comp to make Allison get all the dirty work on her hands, and then her winning in a 6-1 vote. The jury didn't love her, though, which is my main flaw with her, but I do give her credit for also being up against someone who was even equally more hated, mainly Allison. So she lands here at number 10. Moving on to number 9. We have the winner of Big Brother 5, Drew Daniel. And Drew Daniel I'm pretty mixed on Drew Daniel. On one hand, he dominated the season, but on the other hand, he used it with he dominated the season alongside Diane. I mean, he was in the minority for the first part of the game, but he wasn't really on the he was kind of on the top of the minority, where if somebody who was in the majority they would have targeted the person who was on the bottom of the majority, like Jace. He was really like on the bottom of the minority, which is the Four Horsemen, where if the Four Horsemen lost power, they probably would have nominated Scott and Jace, and he was able to integrate himself with people like Diane and with people like Diane and Nokomis to get him out of that sticky situation. And after the Four Horsemen disbanded, he was able to keep his relationship with Cowboy, keep him safe until the final 6, form that 3-person alliance of him, Diane, and Michael, Diane, and Cowboy, which basically ran the season, cut Diane at the end because he would have lost to Diane, and win to Cowboy in a 4-3 vote. And his 4 votes were basically locked. Those votes were not flipping. So, yeah, he lands here at number 9. But it's that early game that really kind of screws him up in the placements for me. Anyways, moving on to number 8. We have Will Kirby. And this is probably going to be a very controversial placement. But, I mean, I put him in this tier. Honestly, I probably should have put him somewhere like where Lisa Donahue is. But I tried to push him up as far as possible. Because I have a little bit of bias towards him. But anyway, Will Kirby didn't dominate Big Brother. So he's at the top of the second tier, because the top tier is dominate the season. He's not in there because Will Kirby didn't dominate the season. That was Nicole and Hardy. Will was just a background character in the game mostly, just trying to skate by. So, and that was mainly due to his own doing. His alliance of him, Shannon, and Boogie isolated the others, which isolated the other people in the house, which then puts him at a disadvantage once they lose their power. So that's why he's here at number 8, but he also did play a very strategic game and was able to maneuver through a ton of sticky situations, so that's why he's here at number 8. Moving on to number 7, we have Nicole Franzel. And Nicole Franzel, she played a very dominant game of Big Brother. I mean, she was never really targeted at a point. She always went with the majority, but was also in control of the majority. I mean, she flipped through being in control of the majority or being a follower of the majority. So where does that place her? I think that puts her in the dominant tier, especially her endgame, where her and Corey are in this 4-person alliance with Paul and Victor. She's able to nominate Paul and Victor. Well, she technically gets Corey to nominate Paul and Victor. They evict Victor, and then when Paul wins HOH, it's Nicole and Corey, and Paul tells James to make a fatal decision and vote, and she was also able to convince Paul to keep her at the final 3. So that's why I put her here at number 7, because I mean she dominated most of the season. So she is here at number 7, even though for some reason not many people like her game here. Anyways, we have our top 6 left to reveal. And at number 6, we have somebody who is a controversial nowadays, but back in the day, he was probably one of the better winners of the show by that point. And that is Mike Mallon. Mike Mallon, I think it's Mike Mullen, but I like calling him Mike Mallon. Or Mike, well, technically it's Mike Boogie, but Mike Boogie, now he's very controversial, especially with what happened with him and Will, and especially, especially the racial comments that he's made recently. But he played a very dominant game of Big Brother with Will Kirby. Him and Will basically dominated the whole entire season up until the final 4. Like him and Will had no trouble skipping by each time, basically because they kept branching out their relationships, cutting people at different points, And once they hit the final four, they were pretty much smooth sailing to win. But then Erica and Janelle compare notes, and Mike and Will make the most boneheaded move here, where Janelle wins immunity, or wins power of veto, takes herself off. Will goes up automatically, and Janelle votes out Will, which is completely stupid, which then forces Mike to have to win the final HOH, which he does, but he technically put himself there, which is why I put him at number 6, because these top 5 winners were pretty much never in danger of going home, which is why I put Mike Mellon and Mike Malin at number 6. Moving on to number 5, we have Maggie Osborne, and I mean, she dominated this season. Once Cappy left, she controlled everything, at least on her side of the friendship. So she was able to basically form a cult around Cappy, and then she just kept throwing competitions to let other people in her alliance win the comps that they needed to where then they would be targeted by the other side when they went HOH. Like a Jenny after she evicted Kaser, she was the one evicted next. So I put her here at number 5 because she basically tricked everybody and ran circles around her. She also wins against Janelle, somebody who most of the fan base thought is going to win that season. So, yeah, she's here at number 5 because she dominated basically the entire season. Moving on to number 4, we have Hayden Moss. And like him, Maggie, he dominated the entire season with the Brigade. Which is my main flaw in why he's here at number 4 is because he didn't dominate by himself. Like, he wasn't the front runner the entire time. It was always him, Enzo, Lane, and Matt. But I do also give him credit for not knowing anything about Big Brother and being able to play this dominant of a game. So Matt laid the strategic ground for him, and he won a ton of comps, which he was able to then get in the Brigade with that, and then once they reached the final 5, once he reached the final 7, they evicted Matt, who was the biggest threat at that point, and then it was smooth sailing from there. So he never really had trouble and was never really gonna be evicted. My main flaw with him is that he almost loses the game, but not really. I mean, his 4 votes were probably locked, and Rachel and Brendan both regret their votes nowadays, and he's never gonna get Brittany's vote anyway, but... So, yeah, Rachel and Brendan would have probably voted for him if they were actually thinking strategically. So, yeah, and also, he almost loses to Enzo. But Enzo doesn't win that final HOH, so he doesn't win. So, yeah. Anyways, we're now down to our top 3 winners of Big Brother. And I think it's pretty obvious who they are. But here is a controversial figure in the Big Brother franchise, as... for some reason, a lot of people don't like him, which the community is very mixed on this guy. I'm personally more of a positive on him than negative on him, and that is Andy Herron. The fact is, he played one of the most dominant games in reality show history. Nobody in that season disliked him. And I don't get how anybody glosses over that fact that everybody liked Andy Herron. So yeah, everybody liked him. Nobody wanted to evict him. And he was able to just run circles around everybody. So he was able to play a very dominant game in a cast that was full of very strategic players. He was able to trick McRae into voting out... he was able to trick McRae into not nominating him and nominating Alyssa once McRae was evicted, once McRae went HOH, once McRae went POV, he was able to get Judd nominated, and then he has smooth sailing until the final part, until the finale, where he wins the season almost unanimously. Nobody disliked Andy this season. If you can find me one person who disliked Andy, or at least didn't dislike him, or at least someone who disliked him in the house, I will personally give you one of my socks. Just kidding, I won't. But, like, actually find me someone who disliked Andy in the house. I think it's impossible to find. Anyways, we have 2 more players to reveal here. And at number 2, Derek. Derek played a fantastic game at Big Brother. But I also put him at number 2 only because he was saved by a couple twists. Especially the reset button twist. Derek probably loses the season due to the reset button twist, as Frankie Grande Frankie probably would have evicted Victoria, and then I could see Frankie just winning out until the end. But that's beside the point. But other than that, he dominated the entire season week 2 on. Basically nobody disliked him, and everybody was a follower to him. Nobody was gunning after him, which is why he went 98 days without being nominated once. So, nobody disliked him. He dominated the season. He controlled basically everything. So, that's why he's here at number 2. And he also played multiple sides and blindsided tons of people. So, yeah, he lands here at number 2. Moving on to our number 1 winner. And you probably already guessed it since Will and Derek are already here. We got Dan Giesling. And Dan Giesling is a fantastic player of Big Brother. I think he's the best player of Big Brother ever. So in Big Brother 10, he was in the minority, which is something I don't give him credit for, but he was able to bounce back up, make people think he was weak. And then once he reaches the jury, he's able to form a 4-person alliance with him, Keisha, Rennie, and Memphis, which is able to dominate the season until the end, where he gets Memphis to basically do all the dirty work for him by evicting Rennie, by evicting Keisha. And then once we reach the end, nobody has a reason to not vote for him. So that's why he's here at number 1, as everybody basically liked him. I mean, except for Jerry, but, he still voted for him at the end. So that's why Dan is here at number 1. And that's it for my Big Brother winner rankings. I'm getting tired of these videos, but I still have an Amazing Race 1 to do, and then it's on to the Amazing Race 1 review, as I just finished Season 31. So that's it for Big Brother. Bye.